Welcome to Lessons in Leadership. Steve Adubato with my colleague Mary Gamba. We continue our series, Leaders in Law, with a terrific young attorney, Guillermo Artiles, who is Government Affairs Chair at McCarter and English, LLP. Guillermo, good to see you, my friend.
Likewise, Steve. Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Mary.
Hey, Guillermo, let's get this out of the way. Most people involved in this production are Yankee fans. You happen to not be a Yankee fan. You're a Met fan, correct?
I'm a big Mets fan, Steve.
Okay, and just so I understand, the reason for that is there has to be a reason always.
Just as a child, I idolized, my uncle, my sister's godfather, who was a Mets Cowboys fan. I share that allegiance, as far as I know, with only two people: our COO here at McCarter and English, and former Governor Chris Christie.
That is one of the worst explanations as to why someone's a Met fan I've ever heard. Guillermo, let's talk serious about law. Here we go. And I should also disclose that Guillermo and I have been golf partners in very competitive golf competitions. And I try to play by the rules most of the time, but there are too many rules in these tournaments, so I choose not to play anymore. Guillermo plays by all the rules. But Guillermo, what's this transition? What the heck are the rules in 2025 to be a great leader in a law firm today in these challenging times?
Tough times, Steve. It is hard to be in the law in the best of times. Lucky enough here to be at McCarter and English, but it is tough. We've got to stay true to our principles and also be a bit flexible, right? Hope for the best in the future, but really only work on what's ahead of you right now, right? What we control is what we need to continue focusing on, never losing sight of our moral compass, right? What mom and dad taught us well before we were lawyers, I think is most important, and what I think allows my practice to continue moving ahead, which in the government affairs context is especially sensitive, right?
That's right. Yeah, and by the way, part of the Leaders in Law series that we're doing, check out previous interviews with Joe Bocassini, a real leader at the firm at McCarter and English, and also Judge Jose Linares. Check out those interviews. And also Scott Kobler, who is a key player in public broadcasting in the state. Mary, jump in, because I want to ask Guillermo about how he even got into the law, but take it from there.
Yeah, you can do that in a second. Thanks so much for joining us, Guillermo.
Just blow me off. Go ahead, pick it up from there. Go ahead, Mary.
Thanks for inviting me in, Steve. I greatly appreciate it. Steve, you were talking a little bit.
The executive producer of the series.
I could jump in whenever I want, but thank you for inviting me in. Steve mentioned that you all play golf together, but you're also very much into giving back. Leadership and giving back is something that Steve and I talk about all the time. We happen to notice that you sit on the boards of such great organizations as NJPAC, First Tee. Why is it so important to you as a leader in law to give back to the community and to others?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely important, Mary. First in my family to go to college. The game of golf in particular has taught me an immense amount about leadership, about camaraderie, about loyalty and relationships. It is incredibly unique to spend depending on who you're playing with, 5 hours of uninterrupted time on a golf course. You can learn an immense amount from those you are playing with. I'm a learner before anything else, and I love to be able to spend time and really just pepper questions on whoever it is that I'm playing with about his or her professional existence, how they got to where they are. I didn't pick up the game until my freshman year of college. And I was quickly, though, introduced thereafter to the importance of the game, right? And how it really does open doors that were previously never opened to me. And I now, as a leader of this practice, encourage all of my team members, men and women alike. I especially encourage women to get involved in the game, because I've seen sort of the life hack, for lack of a better term,
right,
that can be the game of golf. And the First Tee of Metro New York, New Jersey is wholly dedicated to increasing access to first-gen individuals who've never played the game, and encourage them at a young age that it really can open doors for them well into their future.
By the way, check out our website, our sister operation at One on Public Broadcasting. Check out our website, steveadubato.org. It'll be up right now. we did an interview, in-depth interview with the leader of First Tee in the New York metropolitan area. Great stuff. Guillermo, go back to this. Why law for you?
First gen Cuban father, Italian mother. It was law or medicine. I was not great at math, and so the law won. That truly is sort of the beginning of it. And then I quickly realized that being an advocate for initially those in need, and now those a bit more fortunate, and also those still in need. I enjoyed the advocacy, right? I enjoyed the defending the interests of somebody else. And I treat, today as a lobbyist no differently than I did as a litigator, right? I'm advocating on behalf of one client who feels that his or her interests are paramount to those of someone on the other side, right? Whether I'm in a courtroom, there's a plaintiff and a defendant. If I'm in the state house, instead of a judge, there's a senator or an assembly person, and I'm trying to convince them that my client's interests should win the day. And I really enjoy that advocacy piece of the law and lobbying.
A lot of what Guillermo just talked about is leadership in different forms. Mary, please.
Guillermo, your passion and excitement for the law and for what you're doing is just jumping off the screen. How do you recruit, retain, train a younger generation of, like you said, for you, it was either going to be the law or medicine. How are you engaging young adults who may be interested in the law to get into it and have that passion that you have?
Yeah, so I'm incredibly proud of the team that we have here. We grew this practice from nothing, right? Both the government affairs and the cannabis practices at McCarter English. We had incredible leaders like Joe Belcassini and the late Mike Kelly, who decided to take a chance on me and this crazy idea to launch these practices at the firm. But since then, and that was, almost 8 years ago now, I've been able to recruit this amazing team here at the firm, and I owe the success all to them. It is a very diverse team, which I am also incredibly proud of. We as a firm are very proud of that. And it's about empowering those individuals and then having the clients really buy in to the notion that, while other folks may be managing and assisting, they should trust those individuals just like, the trust they instilled in me when they hired us.
Here, let me follow up on this. We do a lot of leadership coaching and training, and we do it with certain law firms. And one of the things that keeps coming up that I'm curious about is that a significant number of attorneys, younger attorneys in particular, for them, business development, I'm not talking about inheriting someone else's book of business because they retire and here's a $2 million book of business, manage it. I don't mean that. That's hard enough. But bringing in new clients, there are a whole range of leadership skills involved in that. Good listening, negotiating, being helpful, making a difference, pricing it right, all those factors. Why is business development so challenging for so many in your field who may not have learned that in law school?
Play golf, play golf, play golf. No,
I'm noticing a theme here.
No, but Guillermo, in all seriousness, the theme here is about Guillermo is a relationship guy. Mary and I talk about this all the time. Can you separate business development from relationship building?
You can't. I think they're inseparable. I think those who do it really well realize that they are joined at the hip, and that, like anything else, it takes time. You've got to continue watering those plants, right? That will eventually germinate and grow into very, very solid relationships that you can count on, hopefully, for the rest of your life. And I always like to say, Steve and Mary, that the law, lobbying, any sort of service industry, right, is a full contact sport, right? I have an incredible wife at home, a beautiful son and daughter, but they give me a great amount of latitude to attend events sort of after hours, right? To be there for the 8 a.m. breakfast and the 8 p.m. dinner. That is not always easy, but it is absolutely critical in this profession. And folks have a hard time sort of, realizing that and or making the sacrifices, where they have to.
Yeah, and by the way, I happened to call Guillermo on a Sunday. It was actually Palm Sunday. Called him in the morning, and did I hear children in the background?
You did. We were going to get bread at Calandra's to bring to Nona's house.
Check out Calandra's. It's the best bread anywhere on the East Coast or in America. That's Guillermo's the Italian part of his background. Were you down in Newark on Bloomfield Avenue?
No, we were the one in
up in the Caldwells.
Yeah, in the Caldwells.
Okay, you can go to one. Listen, we're not turning this into a commercial for Calanders. Okay, that's Guillermo. He's a great, terrific lawyer. This is part of our series, Leaders in Law. Thank you, my friend. See you on the golf course. Hey, any putt within 8 feet, can you give it to me?
It's a given for you, Steve.
It's a gimme.
That's a Steve rule.
Yeah.
I'm breaking the rules. I got to play by the rules this year. Thanks, Guillermo, for joining us. We'll be right back right after this. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Vicino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the North Ward Center, Gingoli Construction, the New Jersey Sharing Network, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the HELIX, Fedway Associates Inc., the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media.
The North Ward Center continues to expand their services and outreach in Newark from the childhood years to the golden years, offering programs like preschool, youth leadership development, Casa Israel Adult Medical Day Program, our Family Success Center, as well as a gymnasium, and most recently, Hope House, a permanent home for adults with autism, supporting and nurturing our autism community, with Hope House 2 coming soon. The North Ward Center, we're here when you need us.
We're now joined by our good friend, Chris Paladino, president of the Brunswick Development Corporation, part of our series, Discovery and Innovation in New Jersey. How are we doing, Chris?
Hey, it's great to be here. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Update us. First of all, remind folks who have not seen, you can see on our website previous interviews with Chris. We're going to be talking about the HELIX. Tell folks exactly what the HELIX is.
The HELIX is hopefully developing as an innovation ecosystem. It's probably going to end up being somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 million square feet, an investment of over $2 billion of researchers, support personnel, scientists, students, academics, who are hopefully all collaborating and leading the next generation of innovation and discovery in the state of New Jersey.
And along those lines, a whole range of partnerships that the team at the HELIX is involved in. But Chris, talk to us about this. What is the Nokia Bell Labs Innovation Center?
Bell Labs just celebrated its 100th birthday, 80 of it in New Jersey in Murray Hill. At one point, they had close to 10,000 researchers. Over the last 80 years, they have won 11 Nobel Prizes. They brought us the transistor, the semiconductor. They confirmed the Big Bang Theory. They discovered quantum dots that led to space exploration, medical devices, everything that we use today in our home. And they started to look for the place that they were going to spend the next 80 years. Number one, we were fortunate they decided to stay in New Jersey, that they didn't go to Austin, Texas, or someplace else. And they were looking for a modern facility where their scientists could collaborate with other researchers on a wide variety of issues. So instead of, like many of the pharmaceutical companies have changed their methodology, they didn't want to be on that campus behind the wall and fields and being isolated. They wanted to be in a dynamic place. So they chose the HELIX. So they're the second building. It's about approximately 400,000 square feet. It's $600 million of investment. But the critical part is that they are bringing 1,000 mathematicians, physicists, computer scientists, electrical engineers who are going to be working on AI. They're going to be working on quantum computing. They're working on 6G, the next generation of cellular systems. In fact, they have just launched and they will run the first lunar network from New Brunswick. They're putting a cellular network on the moon, and it's going to be run from New Brunswick. And they're also going to do a significant amount of drone research in New Brunswick. The exciting part about this is that over the next 6 to 7 years, half of their employee base is retiring. And one of the reasons they chose New Jersey, one of the reasons they chose New Brunswick, is that it's the perfect place to recruit engineers, mathematicians, physicists, because they're graduating from Princeton and from Rutgers and NJIT and Stevens. We have in New Jersey, I think, per capita, the largest per capita number of PhDs, scientists, and engineers anywhere in the world.
And real quick, the Nokia name is tied to it?
So Nokia acquired Bell Labs a number of years ago. If you trace it back after the AT&T divestiture,
right.
Lucent owned it for a while, but when the Bell system got broken up, Bell Labs became a kind of a commodity, and Nokia has been the owner for, I think, the last 15 years.
Mary, pick it up.
I seem like such a science and math nerd. I got goosebumps when you were talking about all of this, so I'm really excited. I would love to hear, without partnerships, without your leadership and working together to build these partnerships with others, can you talk about your journey from inception to now? I mean, in a minute or two, but I really would love to hear about the importance of partnerships and the success of where you are with the HELIX today.
So, it all starts with an idea. It matures to a plan. That idea was actually generated, Steve, you were talking about Professor Van Horn and the transition office.
At Rutgers. Yep.
And, he was public policy consultant. And he said to me, we're looking for a big idea. And I said, well, I got an idea. That had to become a plan. It had to have an implementation strategy, and then it had to be a little luck. But Mary, you're right. But for the partnerships, with Hackensack Meridian Health, with RWJ Barnabas, with Rutgers, with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority in Middlesex County, we were able to put together enough pieces that took something that was a bit of a crazy idea to begin with, and it's becoming a real reality.
Chris, the AI piece of this, you mentioned it before. Are you afraid at all of AI, or do you say, let's make this work for us?
Well, I think all new technologies have need some type of framework around it. I think it's just the next generation of our development, but I think we do have to put some type of guardrails around it, because all new technologies have been used inappropriately. And I think we need to be able to find a way to make sure that it's used appropriately. It has incredible potential in all fields. We just kind of hope it doesn't take away the human creativity.
But we can't just assume that it won't take away human creativity. It has to be managed and be very strategic about it and intentional, as opposed to, AI will cut down our costs because we can get rid of a bunch of people. You can't take that meat cleaver to it, right?
Right. I think much like the first computers did, I think accelerating research is probably its greatest value. And you have to kind of just be careful about those things where it could actually become harmful to a culture.
Mary, jump back in. Got another minute or so with Chris.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked a little bit about all of the entrepreneurs and what the HELIX is going to mean to keeping these folks in New Jersey. What more can and should we be doing to keep young adults? I have a 20 and a 23-year-old. What more can we be doing to say, hey, you're here, stay here, and the HELIX is a great place for these entrepreneurs? What message do you have for those young adults that are out there watching today?
Well, New Jersey is becoming and had to become a place where there is opportunity. And this is an opportunity that you don't need to go to Palo Alto. You don't need to go to Cambridge to be able to be creative and to collaborate with all kinds of, with your peers. The exciting thing that's happening here already, the innovation studio that is just started at Nokia, a number of people who are involved with that are already collaborating with faculty at the Rutgers Medical School on medical device and artificial intelligence, kind of computing and looking at disease, public health. So the fact that you put people from various disciplines in one place, I think, Mary, gives young people in New Jersey a reason to stay. There's excitement, and look, it's a great place to live. Let's not kid ourselves. And I think most people have left New Jersey, young people, and the brain drain that we used to talk about was because they were looking for opportunity. And I think we're kind of climbing our way back of creating it here.
Before I let you go, Chris, one more quick question. I think I've asked you this before, but the answer has changed, has to change. This experience in leading the HELIX, leading and collaborating with so many others on behalf of DevCo, how has it changed you as a leader? This is part of Lessons in Leadership. How has it changed you? I know for me, there are a whole bunch of changes I've tried to make as new challenges and opportunities hit us right in the face or we totally miss them. But this is about you. Biggest change in you as a leader.
I think Mary actually kind of struck on it, though. We've had to make the net bigger. We've had to rely on our partners more because the challenges are larger and more challenging. So I think I have tried to be more of an impresario than someone who's out there just trying to do all the work myself and kind of relying.
Are you more of a facilitator?
More of a facilitator, more of a convener. In many ways, and I've become a better listener because I am now wading into places, into subject matters that I have very little understanding of, and to be able to listen to some really smart people and find a way to become a catalyst to make things happen. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Did you really ever think you'd see a project that had Hackensack Meridian, Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas, Rutgers, and governmental entities all stepping up and taking responsibility to move something forward? They're they're competitors, and
not even close.
Right, and somehow we've been able to pull that off. I think it's the excitement, and I think it's the next generation of leaders in those organizations too, who understand that they can't work in silos.
Well said. That's Chris Paladino, president of New Brunswick Development Corporation. This is part of our series, Discovery and Innovation, right here in the Garden State, New Jersey. Thank you, Chris, as always. Talk soon.
You. All right, thank you.
Mary and I will be right back right after this. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, the HELIX, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Fedway Associates Inc., Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856. All right, Mary and I have a few minutes left to talk about something that happened a while back, but it's still relevant. Mary, I'm a fan of golf, right? One of my favorite books. You should check out the interview with the author of this book. Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. And the author is Dr. Bob Rotella. Check out the interview we did with Dr. Bob Rotella. Now, why is this relevant? As I'm watching Rory McIlroy in that excruciating final round of the Masters. The Masters, one of 4 major golf tournaments. Rory McIlroy had won 3 of the 4, and it had been an entire decade plus that he had won a major, and winning the Masters was the final. And he, in many ways, thought it would never happen. Bob Rotella, Dr. Bob Rotella, a sports psychologist, was and is Rory McIlroy's coach. I was blown away. By the way, check out an article we'll put on our website. Our good friend Mark Cannizzaro, who writes for the New York Post, wrote this story about Rory McIlroy. Mental battle helped with the win. Mary, Rory McIlroy was saying he was inside his own head. What the heck does being focused and in your head have to do with leadership?
It has It has everything to do with leadership, and you could see it unfolding. You know, he was going in his mind of all the other times that he got so close and then blew it in the last, his problem, for those of you that don't know golf, is in that short game when you only have like a 4-foot putt, 6-foot putt. And sure enough, I literally closed my eyes because in the regular match, he had, I don't know what it was, maybe a 6-foot putt. I closed my eyes and I waited to hear the cheering. It was a putt and he was going to win, and he missed it, and it went into overtime.
But then you could fold at that. You could fold at that point.
At that point, you could fold, and you could tell he was in the zone. He was eating, he was hydrating. He, some of his opponents, I don't know if they were chastising him, but they let him know, like, hey, you weren't talking to us during the game.
DeChambeau, who was playing, was saying, who was a big baby.
He didn't handle himself well.
It's not his job to talk to you.
No, he was so focused, and to his credit, he has a grit.
Mary?
Yeah.
Angela Duckworth's book. Is that what Rory McIlroy showed as mental grit?
It was mental grit, but mental focus more so than anything else. He could have unfolded. He could have played that record in his head that every time he'd been there before, he missed it by that much. And you could tell he composed himself. He didn't overthink. He didn't take extra time. Just you've hit this ball a million times in your life. He's played since he was like 5 years old. So literally, you could tell he composed himself, hit that shot, and at that moment he knew that he had done what only I think 5 or 6 other people have ever done before, was to win those 4 titles.
Well, but stay on that, Mary. And for those who are not interested in golf, that's okay, because it's really not about golf. I'm fascinated by the concept of the reality of confidence. Someone might say, and it's true, it's easy to have confidence when you're making a 6-foot putt. It's easy to have confidence when you're winning, whatever arena you're in. You're bringing in money, you're making sales, your team is doing great, you're in first place, whatever. Number 1 in your industry. He had to have confidence after he blew a 4-shot lead, put the ball in the water a couple times, missed short putts, but then had to go into a sudden death extra hole, but then he still had confidence. How the heck do you keep your confidence and have the right movie playing in your head?
It is training, it is practice, and it is investing the time in preparing before that day, before that tournament. He was preparing mentally for that very moment, for the what ifs, because he ended up in that what if I end up in that situation again. And for, to his credit, he kept his mind focused and in the moment.
All right. So. Being in the moment also says you need to look at your director saying, say goodbye. You got to go. We have no more time. Thank you, Elvin Badger. So congratulations to the great Rory McIlroy, and also to our good friend, the great Dr. Bob Rotella. This is one of his many terrific books, who was and still is Rory McIlroy's coach. Everyone needs a coach, even when you're the best, like Rory McIlroy. For Mary and myself, Steve Adubato, still struggling with golf. We'll see you next time. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Vicino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the North Ward Center, Jingoli Construction, the New Jersey Sharing Network, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the HELIX, Fedway Associates Inc., the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media.
The North Ward Center continues to expand their services and outreach in Newark from the childhood years to the golden years, offering programs like preschool, youth leadership development, Casa Israel Adult Medical Day Program, our Family Success Center, as well as a gymnasium, and most recently, Hope House, a permanent home for adults with autism, supporting and nurturing our autism community, with Hope House 2 coming soon. The North Ward Center. We're here when you need us.